My name is Jacques de Vos. I'm part of Reality. We're a software development consultancy. We help teams by software development coaching. We do workshops on things like emergent design, and we also build cool software products. You can see the guys there in the middle back section. And today I'm going to take you through my own journey of and where I see all these mobile frameworks and the choices we have to make around that, because I think it's quite a difficult problem. So who builds something that runs on a mobile website? Sure, I thought I'd see more hands. So I would like to go slower for the rest, but I just don't have time. Why is mobile development so hard? Just give me a quick.
Screen sizes.
Screen sizes. That's good. Okay, that's yours. Screen sizes, yes. Yeah, okay.
That all works slightly different. Every single phone out there is variations.
Yeah, that's right. So this. Fragmentation, this is just the fragmentation on Android, on devices, right? This was last year, it's worse this year. If you just look at operating systems, this nicely even distributed wheel is the wheel of hell, because they're all different operating systems, or at least versions. We don't show the different iOS ones here. So yeah, and you have to support them. Nobody cares about what you think. The users use what they use. The other thing is it's hard. These platforms are very, very different. Just thinking about how iOS and Android differs. In Android, you can kind of call other applications from within an application with intent. So you can kind of stick applications together where it's completely against the Apple philosophy. So it is different, and technology changes. I mean, mobile hasn't been that around. The mobile, as we know, it hasn't been around that long, and it's evolving very fast. A good example of this is Swift. Who's worked with Swift before? Okay, so 2013 it didn't exist, or nobody knew about it. 2014 version 1 was announced, and it started getting used. 2015 version 2 was announced, and with lots of breaking changes. And now version 3 was announced of a programming language with more breaking changes. This is a nightmare. And this makes it slow, expensive, really hard to do mobile development. But we know we have to solve this problem. People are on their phones. So what do we have? What's our options? What tools do we have? This is obviously a difficult software engineering problem, and we like difficult software engineering problems. So let me just run you through a couple of options. There are more. This is not comprehensive, but the ones I saw as representing the major classes of options. The first one is pure native. Who's done some pure native development here? More than that's working on mobile. That doesn't make sense.
Because they've stopped working on mobile.
They stopped working on mobile. I asked who is working. Oh, okay, I see. So maybe that's the reason. So Apple and Google are throwing hundreds of millions of dollars into these SDKs, into these platforms. So there's a lot of capabilities that are evolving. The platforms are really different IDEs, different philosophies, so many differences. Then on the other side of this, complete other side of the spectrum, we have good old web development, which we all in this room love. And you can build one thing, and if you design it responsively, it can run on any freaking device, even a BlackBerry. And yeah, and you can actually build quite good stuff. The progressive kind of philosophy that's coming in, you can why do you need an app? Do you always need an app? That's being challenged by the web community. Then there's a few options in the middle. The first one I call a semi-native option, and that's Xamarin Studio. One of the biggest drawbacks with it was expensive, but it's not anymore. It's free-ish. You just have to use Microsoft stuff, but otherwise it's free. And it's really great. You get a lot, and most importantly, you build iOS and you build Android user interface, but you use the same IDE, you use the same programming language, C# and .NET, but that gets compiled into bytecode, into the platform's own, so you have the full potential for a full native user experience, which is great. So definitely a good option. The new kid, or I don't know how new, but the cool kid on the block is React Native, and we'll hear much more about this. So the great thing about React Native is you're still using your native SDKs that Apple and Google have put so much effort in, and you still get that speed of interaction. You still get that low latency interaction with your functionality. So React Native, the interesting thing is it's JavaScript, and that's cool. And this JavaScript doesn't compile to machine code like Xamarin Studio. It still runs the JavaScript, but it will call your native SDKs from within JavaScript. That makes it very interesting. Notice I didn't really talk about React. For me, it's the other things are what it gives a mobile developer that's more interesting. The next option is hybrid development. Now, hybrid's got a good or bad name depending on who you speak to. And the specific option I'm looking at is Ionic 2, built with Angular 2. So hybrid means you have a browser running inside your app, and your interaction with the app is through HTML. So, web developers, like most of you here, really love this stuff. What Cordova does is it tries to give you an API to your device-dependent things like location or camera. It just tries to abstract those things away, and so that it looks the same for Android and iOS. And Ionic 2 tries to give you a couple of controls. I know it does more, but at the end of the day, it gives you a couple of controls that feels closer to the native controls, so that it feels like a bit more like an Apple app. So those are options, and the two big classes are the SDK rendered ones, the native and the semi-native ones, and the other class is the HTML rendering. So, okay, that's a lot of options, and these are only a few that are out there. How do we choose? Now it gets tricky. The first thing I see in the wild is people choose the new and shiny. Developers like the new and shiny. But the problem with the new and shiny is you might end up burning in lava. The next one is we choose based on our fanaticism. We choose, people get religious about their platforms, and we'll choose based on this religion, and we'll, depending on which is the dark force, depending on which side you stand, the other side looks dark. The next one is choosing what you know. You're comfortable. You maybe have used C# a lot, so you'll definitely just jump into Xamarin. And there's a bit more merit to this because there's risk in the unknown. But I would say a better starting point is what's the need? What does your business want from this application that you're building? You can't spend enough time thinking about this. Specifically, quality of service. That's the starting point. So the kind of things I'm talking about is, what's the kind of user experience required from this? Are we building a a back office, intranet, I don't know, HR checklist. I don't know, are we going to spend gazillions on the user experience for that? Not sure. And then the other thing is cost. We always have to think about this and the longer term cost. That's often forgotten when we select frameworks. And then the third one is continuous delivery. Continuous delivery has become a business advantage. And how important is it for us to be able to roll out things quickly or respond to an issue quickly? Those are things we need to really understand. And there are many other subtle things that are specific to your business and specific to your environment. You have to really understand that. So if we think in those terms and we think about these framework options, what do we get? So the first aspect is potential for user experience. And I explicitly use the word potential for user experience because you can build a crap user experience with any framework. It's quite easy. I can show you how in a 5-minute demo. But I won't. So potential for user experience. And for me, somebody asked me the other day, what did Steve Jobs really do? Was he really, he was a big showman, but all the basic technology was already there. So, Elon Musk is actually cooler. And we got into that debate and it made me think. And I realized the one thing it gave us, and the iPhone, which I initially thought was crap, because it didn't have 3G, but what I didn't understand was he changed what's expected from user interfaces. He changed our lives as developers because we need to start thinking about this stuff. So he changed computing for the better. Have you seen this picture before? This is quite accurate. This is your company, right? This is Google. Which one can give you more information? This is just information overload. So this philosophy has taken over, even web apps, and all kinds of, and desktops. Those old school VB desktop app style of building software is luckily starting to die. And my belief is native definitely still has the edge on potential for user experience. So the one famous case is Mark Zuckerberg. He said, this is the biggest mistake Facebook has ever made, is to choose HTML5 hybrid application. We used the old hybrid app Facebook built before they have their native. A few of you. Okay, what was your experience? There we go. It sucked. And the thing is, people interacted with Facebook less because of it. When they changed to native, it just, the amount of transactions, I don't know if you call what you do on Facebook transactions, but that increased. But that's just appeal to authority, right? So let me just give you my own example. So when we built tracks for Africa last year, we used native because people are using this map and guide in the field. It needs to be local, and native just gave a superior experience. You can see two things here. The one is clustering happening as we go. So there's a big local cache, and you can also see the animations and those kinds of things are really just out of your way. I think that's the point. And you can do searches quite quickly. These kinds of things are quite hard to optimize on a hybrid application. So I really saw a need for that for applications like these. The other one is, so it's just that speed of interaction. You just tap and it happens. even Ionic 2, which is built on Angular 2, which is a lot faster and a lot better, you can still feel that slight delay. And it's just not acceptable for a lot of applications anymore. The next one is Birdlasser, which Peter back there helped me with. So this is for people in the field, also offline, capturing bird sightings. And what I want to show you is, except for the nice animations and the, like those things are quite easy to do. You can use some interesting SDKs. You can use interesting APIs that aren't accessible through these other hybrid and semi-native options. So let me show you one. African fish eagle. Cool. Boom. I saw it right here. And this is going to the environmentalists. Good luck with their research. So yes, so native has its place. And if I analyze it a bit more, I see that the speed of interaction is better, but these semi-native options also give me that speed of interaction, React and Xamarin. The use of interesting SDKs, we can do it with the semi-native options or with the hybrid options, but it's always a slip. There's always a bit of work you have to do to get to those interesting things, because they support the broad use cases, right? And then the interesting outlier is visualization libraries, where JavaScript just kicks ass. So if we generalize this, native has a higher potential if you're going to use it, right? Only if you're going to use it, and goes down as we go to website. The next aspect is, let's see the time, still good. So learnability, and I saw this working with Henry on a health visualization application, and he built the Android side, I built the iOS side. We didn't want to work that way, and we're not scared to use new tech. We both want to learn. It was just a big leap. Just to download the 7 gig IDE is already a big leap. Never mind going through a week or whatever of ramp up. So we built the same crap side by side. It's nice crap, but forget that. We built the same thing, and we couldn't work together. So the framework knowledge required is quite a high leap. And if you look at React Native and Xamarin, you still need to understand the frameworks. You still need to understand iOS and Android. So you still need to go through some of that learning, even though you may be just using one programming language. The other thing is Stack Overflow ability. And I'm a full Stack Overflow developer, and I think most of us are, especially with tech changing as fast as it is. And also long-term support. You have to think of these things. And the solid things that the new kids on the block are usually have less Stack Overflow ability. And then just amount of tools required is just a heap with native. So learnability gets better. If you're just building your website, that's the ultimate. Then the next one is reuse. Now, this isn't reuse of some abstract compression library you wrote. This is reuse of the same flippant functionality, which is weird that we have to think this way. The first time I saw that there's a problem with native development is this bird watching app. There's this algorithm that's civil science algorithm that we use to transform the data in a certain way, and we had to build it on. We had to write the same flippant algorithm on 3 platforms. It just doesn't feel right. It's just and it was very bug-prone thing. So there's something wrong about it. When we built the latest health queue app, we decided, screw that, we're going to share the visualizations, and we went the hybrid route. It was so much easier. We even using the same things on desktop. So there's various levels of reuse. The reuse of business logic, you can get in all these options except for the native. So the native is really the culprit. And then reuse of user interface, interesting enough, you don't get that with Xamarin and React Native. There are some other options, but and then workarounds needed. You always need workarounds when you have these indirect APIs over APIs. There's always little weird things that crop up. So same story here. Reuse gets better the closer we get to just proper web development. And then the last one is the ability to deliver quickly, which web developers just take for granted. With mobile dev, you're sitting with these app stores, especially on the Apple side, where it needs to be reviewed. So we saw this going live with this beautiful app. It didn't work. There was a big bug, and we couldn't patch it quickly. I mean, our hands were cut off. We had a lot of back and forth with Apple to at least get it in within a few days. But there's something not cool about that. You know, we're modern software engineers. We want continuous delivery. So there are a few options. The interesting thing is, Apple doesn't allow you to update binaries if you're not going through the proper App Store update and that whole process associated with it. But you are allowed to update JavaScript. So there's a little workaround, there's a little trick. And there are a few of these options that utilize that. The one is Ionic platform deploy. Ionic platform is the guys that support the Ionic framework. They want to make some money from it. But this allows you to push changes. So within means, but you can push an update without going through the App Store. That is amazing. The same with React Native. Somebody like AppHub supports that pushing down changes. Now that gives you a lot. I mean, despite that quick bug fix or quick patch, the big thing is supporting multiple versions. You can't guarantee, you don't know if somebody's updated to your latest version of your app, even if it was approved, even if it's there lying and ready. So you have to think about backwards compatibility with your APIs and all kinds of crap. And that's a pain in the ass. It slows you down. So once again, the web development is the best, but we have a few interesting options here in the middle. And this is where things like React Native shines. So, and then there are a few options that don't fit into these nice lines. The one I like to call hybrid native. And what that means is you build a native app, but some of the screens are web. And the guys who build Ruby on Rails 37 signals, they use that approach. They've got 200 screens, and they pick the top ones and they make them native, and the rest they use their framework called TurboLinks to make the web view a bit more bearable. So that's hybrid. And then you have what I like to call cross-native. That's using something called Xamarin Forms, which you build one list and it actually works on all the platforms. Also, not perfect, but it's an option. And then we've spoken about progressive web apps earlier. That's a real alternative, especially with service worker and those things improving. Do you really need an app? That's the question. And then there are others like NativeScript, which I didn't even look at. Who's worked with NativeScript before? Does it work? Okay, it works. It works. Okay, it works. Is it new and shiny? Okay, it's new and shiny, everyone. So just to conclude this, this is actually quite a difficult decision to make, and which is right. This is a real architectural minefield of trade-offs. So I would say if we have to generalize what we've generalized, then there's a bit of a trade-off between the potential for user experience and cost effectiveness. The closer we go to the web, the more cost effective. Then if we go further than that and we think about what do we have to think of when we choose any tech stack, not just mobile. The first thing is we need to be aware of where our biases sit and where our bigotry sit and where our preferences sit. That might not be the businesses. That's the issue here. So understand your business needs well. I've never met a developer that spent too much time talking to business, trying to understand what they really want from this engagement. So we always bias to the let's choose the tech. And then, understand the subtleties of the trade-off. You could see even in these 5 options, nothing was clear, nothing was obvious. In this health queue one we had to choose now, it's those visualization libraries and we had a specific need to share visualizations. That was kind of the subtle need that just drew our decision. That didn't really fit into this whole picture. So yes, it depends. It depends. Spoken like a true consultant. Who was that? Through that like a true developer. Okay, so we've got how many minutes? 3 minutes. Okay, so let's do 1 minute of questions, or do you just want to go through a bit of a prize? Yes, Kenneth.
Prize.
Okay.
Thank you. Not that I've ever even tried this, but for stuff like the business logic, if it's not insanely difficult, could you not use that JavaScript call, whatever so you to build like 2 native apps for iOS and Android, but then share some of the code with maybe just small bits of JavaScript, and for the visualizations maybe use the web views to fill that gap.
Yeah, so that's a hybrid native kind of approach, but just for the business logic. Definitely, I think that's where React Native shines, because it forces you to think like that almost, but you can mix it up. That's mixing it up has its own cost, right? But maybe mixing it up is justified, especially when you have a lot of things you want to reuse. Yes.
Hi.
Yes.
One of the things you didn't mention, which I feel is kind of important, is cost as a metric. Not only because we're in Africa, but also in general. If you're doing an app, then some user has to go download this app, so they have to go to the App Store and download it.
The data cost.
Well, data cost as well as sort of cost of interaction. Whereas with a web mobile site, you can just go to the site.
Okay, yeah. That's good. So from the user's perspective, not your own business. That's really good.
Developers, we get stuck in
Yeah. Yes, at the back there.
In terms of if you step out of the app space and you're more interested in maybe something like a game, something that's graphically intense, is native the only option, or do you think you could get performance out of a hybrid solution?
In user experiences, like the hardcore Apple guys, previously it took them 2 seconds to notice and say the first curse word on a hybrid app. Now it's up to 20 seconds. I've timed it. So it's getting better, but there's usually a price. Time's up. So Guys, who wants this? Yes! Okay, so we need a question. So I think this is going to be too easy. So which options allow you to continuously deliver? Who's got the answer? Matthew there, his hand was up first.
Mobile.
No? I think your hand was up first.
Ionic.
That's one?
And well, but that's one.
Okay, that's not enough. I want all of it. Sorry, I'm just trying to, who was next?
And the hybrid.
Trying to be fair. Okay, you were quick.
I think React Native is like in the sweet spot.
React Native, but I want all the options. Shit, who was faster? This guy here.
Yeah, I think if you look at the options of hybrid using React Native,
Hybrid, React Native,
and mobile as well using HTML5.
Yeah, that's it. Those three options. Come on. I might not have asked it clearly, but. Okay. Yay. Cheers, man. I don't know, like the check.